The colors we choose can dramatically change how we view a piece. Hi, I'm Katie Hacker. Author Jill Wiseman is here today to show how a simple color change can transform a piece from a southwestern look to a fine jewelry look. Hi, Jill.
Hi there.
Welcome.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here.
I'm so excited to be here.
Well, and you have some great tips for us. We've been talking about color this season.
Yeah.
And this is something we haven't addressed at all, which is how your thread choice can affect your beads and also how a color change can really change the look.
Totally change the look. And people really don't take into account the thread choices. And I have learned with experience over time that sometimes I get an entirely different look because of the thread. And this is a really good example right here. This component that I made, I used a thermally bonded thread that was white here, and then I used one that was smoke colored here, and the difference in the crystal color is really dramatic.
It really is.
Here it completely makes it more opaque looking. Here you can kind of keep almost that diamond feel with the clear crystal.
That's right. So that the center beads inside the channels there, you really, really notice it.
Exactly, and it's the exact same bead, and they look like two completely different beads.
They sure do.
Now, even when you're working with, in this case it was crystals, but even if you're working with a seed bead that is something that has some transparency to it, your thread choice can make a difference. Here are 3 different samples. This one, again, was using a white thread, and then a dark, smoky kind of thread. And here I decided to try to bring in some color on purpose. And so I used a teal thread, and you actually get that teal shine through the beads.
Right, so something to play around with maybe before you start to create the whole piece. This is a great idea to make a swatch.
Yes.
And just kind of take a look.
And see how that thread is going to affect your beads if it is.
Good idea.
It happens mostly with transparent beads.
All right, well that makes a lot of sense. And today you're going to show us too how to make a piece that's reversible.
Yes, I am.
Cool. Well, let's take a look at this necklace because I want to point out here the front. This is, I mean, what do you call this color palette? I think it's a really jewel tones and kind of berries.
Well, I'm kind of known for loving purple, so this is my beautiful juicy purples. But then, you know, you can also flip it over and you've got these beautiful greens on the back that go with that purple.
And that makes it great that you could wear it with 2 totally different outfits.
Exactly, and I do all the time.
There you go.
I also designed it with components in mind because that way you can change how they are connected. And in this case, I've made a simple necklace. We have the double version of the necklace up here too.
So this one here on this stand.
Right, and so that gives it a much more statement effect. You could make a simple earring, you could make a drop earring, you can turn it into a bracelet. With those components, it gives you a lot more design options and you can personalize your piece.
Yeah, super versatile. All right, well, let's talk a little bit more about color choice as we look at your components there.
Yeah, so in this case, you're going to be adding 3 rounds of embellishment on each of these little flowers, and you can really change your look by what beads you use. Here I used all the same color bead, and instead of a pearl in the center, I used a crystal. But you can see that's kind of boring. I mean, it's nice, but it's a little boring. So on the next sample here, I played with adding in some dark and medium tones along with that bright silver. And I put the dark tones on the inside, so it kind of fades in a little bit to that dark crystal, and then came out to the lightest color on the outside edge. Now on this one, if I flip, here, it's the exact same beads, but I put the dark color on the outside and the lightest color on the inside. And look how different those 2 stars look, and they're exact same beads. Now, with all 3 of those examples, I used the same beads, but what if, say on this one, I used the grays here, I did pink and popped pink on the back side.
Totally different.
Totally different. And again, this is with the dark color on the outside. On this one, there's the dark color on the inside, fading out to the lighter color.
It is so cool to see how you can just really change it up by just moving the placement.
Totally. Those were all ombre effects. This might be my favorite dramatic effect. Here is a really high-end fine jewelry one. You flip it over. I use southwestern colors, and it gives it a completely casual feel, where the other side was really a high-end fine jewelry feel.
That's right, so you can really kind of create different costume jewelry effects.
Totally. Totally.
Beautiful.
But let's find out how to make it, because
let's do it.
It's so much fun. It's so easy. We start out using some size 8 seed beads here, and you don't want to use a ton of thread to start out with. I use about 4 feet, which is short for me, because you're going to make these flowers one at a time. So you don't need any more than that. We're picking up 4 beads, and we're just going to pass from the tail end back through all 4 of them. I leave about a 4 to 6 inch tail, just enough to weave back in later. And then this still doesn't really make us a circle, so we're going to keep going around by one bead here. And there is our first right angle weave unit of 4 beads. I have a habit of liking to build my right angle weave off the opposite end where the thread is, which means I'm just going to keep moving my thread through the beads here so that I can get to the opposite side.
Do you feel like that makes it more secure?
It's a little bit because it makes it more secure, but also because when we have a strip here, we're going to join them together. And when you fold the strip up, the 2 beads that have the thread coming out of them are the ones you're joining.
Oh,
so it's a
smart.
visual cue to you if you have trouble finding it.
That you're in the right place.
Right. So that's the only time we're going to pick up 4 beads. Now we're going to pick up 3 beads from here on out, because we're going to be sharing this guy that our thread is coming out of. So we're just going back in the side that the thread wasn't there. So there's now our 2 units together. We want to get to this outside edge bead to be able to add another unit, which means that we're just going to pass through 2 beads to get there. 1 and 2. And now we're there. And you would just keep adding, repeating that step over and over again until you have a unit that is 7 units long. And here is my one that I've already done that has 7 units. People sometimes have trouble counting their units. Some people will tell you to go ahead and count the centers of these holes. I find that a little difficult. So instead I use my trusty sticky outy beads, and you can see along this edge you've got sticky outies all the way along here, and I count my sticky outies,
All right,
and that
so then
tells
you know
me
how
I've
many
got
stitches
7.
you have.
Yep. We're going to turn this into a circle. So we are going to fold it like a taco, and you're picking up a single bead and you're passing through the bead that your tail thread was on.
Okay.
And then picking up one more bead here and going back through here. And that now has joined this into a circle. So we're going to go ahead and add the pearl in here, and this is an 8mm pearl. Like I said before, you can use the pearl. I just love the look of the pearls. Now you also can use a crystal, so it just needs to be an 8mm bead for the center here.
Okay, so any 8mm bead that you
Right. Like. I would love to use like a gemstone or something at some point.
That would be really pretty.
So let's see here. Did I get my thread? Yep, my thread's coming out the middle here, and I'm just going to pop my needle straight across. So you kind of have to make sure which unit you're coming out of, and then go straight across to the other unit, and you're just going through the center of the hole. You're not actually going through any beads when you do that.
You're creating your own bead frame there.
You are, yep. This
Perfect.
is kind of like bezeling it in a way. So there we are on the other side. Now, because this is a center component, I want more than one thread that's holding on to that. So what I'm going to do to reinforce it is I'm just going to pass through one of the beads in this unit of 4 right here. It does not matter which bead. And then I'm going to pass right back through that center and through the pearl in the center. Sometimes it can be a little fiddly to find the hole. Come on, little hole, where'd you go? Because it kind of shifts on you a little bit. Let's see here.
Yeah, and but going back through it is a good idea because it does make it more stable.
It is. So my rule of thumb is I like to do at least 3 passes of thread through there. So we'll just pretend I did the 3rd one, and I'll just kind of move forward here. But the way that you then move into position to start adding your rounds of embellishment is we're in the center here. You're going to pass through one of the sticky outy beads on one side, and now we're ready to start embellishing on this top.
Okay, so that starts stitching it together, right?
Mm-hmm, exactly, and it's also you're going to notice that this is really loosey-goosey here, and so as we start adding the embellishment, it's going to tighten up.
Okay.
So we're going to start out, I'm going to do the light color on the inside on this one, and I'm just picking up a single size 11 seed bead and passing through the very next sticky outy bead along this top edge. And that's literally all you're doing for this first round. You're just going to pick up a single bead in the middle of all of these beads.
Okay.
When you get all the way around, I have magic bead powers. Here, this one is done.
You sure do.
I know, aren't I fast? I've done it with a single all the way around here. Now, we're not going to have to step up or anything. We're going to start adding our second round of embellishment by picking up 2 seed beads. So this is where I would change color. In this case, I've got just a really light green. And I'm going to attach it the exact same way by going through the size 8 bead. Now it's no longer sticky outy, but you know where it is. And see how when I add those two beads there, it moves that single one in towards the center. And so you're just kind of forcing those two on the outside, and this is what starts tightening everything up. And you'll go all the way around by just picking up two and passing through the next size 8.
Okay, so adding that next round.
So then we get to round 3, and this is where we get to add those pretty petals. Here I've done the 2s all the way around. This time when you finish, there will be a step up, and by that I mean you're just going to pass through the first 2 beads that you added on that previous round.
Okay.
Here's another color change spot. So now I'm going to go to my bright purple here, and this time I'm passing between the 2s. So I picked up 3, and we're going to pass through that next set of 2.
So you're layering it in between.
Layering it in, and here it's sat in a line, and I don't really want that to happen. What I want, there we go, is a little picot.
Oh, perfect.
And so you can use your needle to just kind of pop that out a little bit.
That looks great.
And you just keep going all the way around. And then your first side will be done. And that's when it looks like this. So here it is completely finished on one side. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use those big size 8 seed beads as a passageway to get to the back side, and we're going to repeat those steps on the back side. So all you have to do to get there is you're going to work your thread to the nearest size 8 seed bead. So in this case I'm going down through the 2s, which then lets me get to the big size 8 seed bead on the top here.
Yeah, it's always about the thread path, isn't it?
It is, and in this case, as long as your thread is not showing, it's okay. I mean, you have options. Then what I'm going to do is I know that there's going to be a seed bead going in the opposite direction here, right in here, so I catch my needle and thread through there.
Okay.
And this is kind of a blind one to go through to get to that seed bead. You just kind of are poking your needle through, there we go, through the beads until you get it through there. Now, I want to be on that top edge of beads. There we go. And now I'm in position to start those 3 rounds of embellishment all over again.
Okay, so then you'll just repeat the same process. And of course, we're going to have this pattern online so people can follow the instructions.
Yeah. And then the last thing to do is to learn how you would join pieces together, because, you know, one is great as an earring, but what happens when you want to bring everything together?
And is there a way of finishing this piece before you're ready to attach it to the next?
You are basically finished once you have completed the embellishment on both sides. And
then you would just weave your tail back in?
I weave the tail back in,
okay.
Yep, and I can get rid of the tail at any time. What I tend to do is leave the working thread attached and then do my attachments with all the working threads that are left over.
All right.
So what I've done here is I worked my thread, so it's coming out the tip of one of these picots. So it's just that very tip sticky outy bead. And then you have a color choice here. You can use any of these colors to create your attachment. So in this case I'm going to use the brightest color and then a single 3mm pearl. Again, you could use a crystal here if you were more crystal inclined.
You can use any kind of bead between,
You could use
right?
anything, that's true. What I'm giving you is a template, but you can play with this.
Sure.
You could make these connections longer if you
wanted.
wanted.
Well, that's one question I wanted to ask you. I mean, you've made so many incredible patterns, and is it just from playing with the beads while you're working, and then?
And they just keep, you know, by the time I'm finished with making one piece, I've already got ideas for 5 more, you know, different ways to do things. So yeah, it just feeds off itself.
Seems like it would.
So I've got the seed bead, pearl seed bead, and then I'm just going to attach it by going through a tip seed bead on the other flower here. And then I'm going to repeat that on the other side. So seed bead, pearl. Pearl holes are trying to hide on me the way they do.
Well, and this is the kind of project that you could work on a little bit at a time because it is component based.
That's one of the things I love about it.
You can feel successful. Mark
exactly,
one off,
you get something
check
done.
One off.
Yep. And then we're going to pass right back through the same bead that you came out of in the first tip, like so.
All right.
And then you're going to, so that creates a nice strong base here. And then you would flip it over and create that same path here between these 2 tips. That way you've got it's sandwiched on the top and on the bottom, and it's much sturdier. It's not going to flip-flop around.
I was going to say, because it is reversible, that way you get the side that you want.
Exactly.
Now, if you wanted it to be able to flip back and forth, you could leave it one.
Yes, you could,
right?
definitely.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about how we can use beading wire too.
Yes, and this is a great thing to do. I was really kind of proud of myself on this one. This bead...
Girlfriend, I think you should be proud of yourself on all these.
Well, that's true. I am on that. I'm going to use a different color since I've got that one attached, but you have this channel down the center of this. And so what I've done is I've taken some beading wire, and I'm going to start out by just kind of threading some pearls, and come on, little pearl hole. So I would just do a whole bunch of pearls here. So it's going to take you probably about 15 of these small pearls. I found that the 3mm pearls work best.
So you basically want to pick a bead that will fit inside the channel there.
Exactly.
You could use a size 8 too, couldn't you?
You could use a size 8 seed bead. That's true.
Okay.
I just had pearls on the brain, and what happens is you're creating this little U shape here, and we're going to fit that into the channel. And so when you have this full of beads, whether there be pearls or whatever, it creates this loop around it. Then you can add a bigger bead right here, add seed beads to the back, and then you've got this beading wire to attach your closure, your toggle, whatever, with a crimp.
Well, and you have a sample of it right here.
I do.
So let's take a look at this one.
And I played a little bit with it. I used the double strand to be able to do this because I thought that would be prettier than just a single. So you've got the loop, in this case I'd use those pearls, came into the larger pearl, and that was really just a decorative accent.
Sure.
And then I brought the pearls and seed beads in here also. You're just going to hook that into your clasp with your crimp and crimp it down. Now this is obviously only one way that you can close this off. I've also discovered that these little flowers make an excellent toggle closure on itself.
What?
The purple one, the one that you love so much over there, look.
Yes, oh, that's great.
So
I noticed that there, but I thought it was a dangle off the back, but that's actually the clasp?
It serves as both,
oh,
exactly,
okay.
Yeah. And here I played with just doing some extra beads back here and did a double strand where
so this
it kind of wove in and out.
has a loop in it, and that fits over. And look, you even made it adjustable.
Yeah.
So these loops
I'd love to say
over.
I planned that, but that was really a happy accident.
So here, you could make it shorter or longer.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
So, and you know, there's certainly no reason you couldn't take the flowers all the way to the back, but you know, it's a larger component, and it might be a little uncomfortable.
Also, it's a lot of
work.
work. If you don't have short hair, you're not going to see it back there, too.
That's very true.
But here's a good example, too, of your attachment points between your flowers.
Right.
Being kind of offset so that it drapes nicely.
Exactly. And what I would do here, this one is going to turn into a bracelet when I decide how I'm going to finish it, but I thought that I love the idea of the second set of the pearls in here to make it, like you said, more cuff-like.
Yeah, that would be really pretty.
I'll do that. And then each one of these little points is an attachment point opportunity for you.
Right, so you could do little dangles and drops. You could add charms.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh.
And here you can see where I kind of brought them off at an angle so that I could bring this in between the other two pearls.
This is great. Thank you so much. These are some great tips
you.
for us, Jill. You always bring great ideas. Thanks so much.
Thank you.